Uh, all right. Well, I am so glad to have you all here today. So my name is Kay and Kay Collins, and I am OK Quilting. And this has just been a lot of fun to get together with this Callithump project. And so today there's actually, it's one of those things where when you write a pattern and then you make it, and people always tweak the patterns. We're going to talk about the one that's behind me, which is a little bit tweaked. And I'm totally okay with that. I think that's fun. That's what quilting's all about, is making things our own. So we're going to talk about actually putting the blocks together today. And so last week we kind of talked about the fabric choice, because the fabric choice is really important on this quilt, I think, because it's kind of where this quilt pattern's all about these big fun fabrics. And honestly, yeah, there are some fabrics that are almost too big for these. So we're using like a 6-inch square. So you cut it 6.5. And I was looking at some of the capes, and some of those are just, those flowers are so big that even with 6 inches, you're cutting a chunk of it off. But I showed you last week. I don't have it over here, but let me grab this quick. But you can use something fun, like the floral panels, or whatever you want. I think that this works really well. So what I've decided that I'm doing, and I'm going to show you today, is I'm working on my Hanukkah one. So this is for one of my friends, and I've been planning this, and then, with all that's going on in the world, I'm extra glad that I'm kind of doing this right now. So this is the fabric. So I'm going to kind of hold it close. So when you are looking at a big print fabric, so these menorahs are pretty big. One thing you're going to want to figure out is what's the repeat on the design, because every design has a repeat. And I do a little bit of fabric design. So when we do those, I often will do like an 8-inch repeat, but this one's a 6-inch. So every 6 inches, you have the exact same thing. Okay, so that's a trick, because now I'm cutting out a 6.5-inch block. So what that means is that there's more waste in when I'm fussy cutting this, because I want the menorah right in the middle. So what I did, and I was trying to get my phone set up overhead so you could see it. So next week I'll have to set up my camera, because I thought my phone would work. I don't think you can see the lines, but what I did was, this is a good time to use a friction pen. So what I did was I took my ruler, and I really like these 8.5-inch. This is a OmniGrid. So what I did was I took some washi tape. I love washi tape. And I marked off the 6.5. Now I don't mark on the 6.5. I mark just to the outside of it so that I can still see the marking. Okay, so that's important. So you want to mark just outside. But now I don't have to worry about finding those lines every time. I love washi tape. Washi tape will come right off, and it doesn't leave residue or anything. Then I used some really thin washi tape, and I made an X, because the center of this, my eyes kept going to the 3-inch spot, right? But that's not really the 3-inch. It's really like the 3.25. And so I put a little X there so that as I'm placing this on my fabric, I don't make a mistake, so that I have one menorah that's like off. So that's one thing that really helps me, is to mark my ruler before I get going with anything that's fussy cutting. And then I kept moving things around until I liked it. So actually, when you look at this design, I need the third arm to hold this up. I thought this was going to be all laying down. It was really great. I found a point. So it's let's see. So right at the top of the star, where the star turns into the stem of the candle holder. So right there, I decided that was my center point. And so as I went across, I would put my center on it, and then I would draw my line on these two sides. Then I'd flip the ruler, and then I could do the other two sides. There is waste when we're fussy cutting. All right. So I bought all this fabric, not really knowing what I was going to do with it. And as it turns out, I don't have enough to cut 16 squares out. As So that's what I need 16 squares to do the throw size, right? So I don't have 16, but I can get 12. I'm like, okay, that's okay. Well, we can make this work, right? We're quilters, we're smart. So on the coloring page, I only colored 12. And so this is where this pattern gets tricky. And I don't know if you noticed, we had some conversation on the Facebook page. We had a lady who did a super cute one with Adirondack chairs. And she actually got a couple of them flipped the wrong way. Oh, here comes Brody. Are you coming to the Zoom meeting? Oh, the dogs are just checking things out. I left the door open tonight. So I actually I colored it out just so that I know kind of what things were going to look like. So let me show you the pieces and then that will make more sense. So here's my middle. So that's fussy cut so that the menorah is right in the middle. And then my pop color that's going to go around it is the gold strips. And then I have a medium blue that's got a small print, and that's actually got the Star of David in there too. This is all so far, this is all from the same set, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's from Andover Fabrics, and it was from 2021. And then this is the outside one. And then I was like, oh man, I have one more fabric, but I didn't have enough of it to do all the sashing. So the sashing's just going to be a solid color. And so it's a light blue. It's going to look great, I think. So basically, this will kind of be up against it. And I think that will pop really nicely. So that's what this is going to work up into. So when I drew this out, I think it's kind of important. If you don't care if your prints are directional, then this is such an easy pattern because you're just going to cut out your squares and then just sew them all the same way. Sew a gold strip on it and sew them all. Sew all 16 of them. Just crank them through and then sew the next one. And honestly, that's how I've done most of these. And they go together so fast because there's no fussy matching. So it's really nice that way. But if you want it to be directional, there's a little bit more thought involved. So, and so I did do directional when I did the Halloween one that I had up last week. We'll talk about this one in a sec. But so this one, I do want it to be directional. So what I did was I colored the 12 that I have actual fabric for, and then I looked at them. And so I label them according to the pop fabric. So I'm basing my naming on the gold part here. So I would call this one lower left, and I would call this one upper left, and I would call this one lower right, and I would call this one upper right. So what I did was I just went through and I counted how many of each would I need, because I don't want my menorahs going in every which way. I just want them going one way. So for this design, I would need 2 of the ones that have the upper right, and 2, so that's these ones, and 2 that have the upper left. And then I need 4 of the lower right and 4 of the lower left. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. So now, as I was doing this today, all of a sudden I was like, I could have made this pattern so much easier. So I will give you the trick today. It's funny how sometimes when you go back to something after a couple of months, you're like, that could have been easier. So the only parts I've done so far, so like this is my upper left. Now what I want to tell you is if you look at the diagram, these are sewed in a certain order. And in this one, the top one gets sewed on first, and then the side gets sewed on. Here's what doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which one you put on first, okay? It's going to fit. So if I were you and I wanted it to be directional, what I would do is sew all the tops on the very top and sew all the bottoms on the very bottom, and then put the other pieces. That's not what the instructions say, but all of a sudden, that was my light bulb today. That would make it a whole lot easier and a lot less likely to get things turned around. But once you know, so I think this one I need 4 of. So once you know you need 4 of this one, it makes it a lot easier to not mess up. This is the hardest part of the whole thing, because once you get the gold, your pop of color on, then you know that the other colors are going on the opposite sides. And so you can't really make a mistake after that on your color placement. So that's probably the hardest part. So I have the first 4 put together. That's how far I've gotten on this. But I just started today, so I think I'm doing great. So then what you would do is the next color will go on. And so it doesn't, I mean, in the instructions, in an instruction, you have to tell people where to put them, but you're just going to go this way. And then the next piece is long enough so it will go on this side. So it doesn't really matter. And then the next piece, but if you do top and then side, when you go to the next one, I would also do top and side so that they kind of log cabin. Does that make sense, everyone? So they kind of log cabin at the top. So you are welcome to follow the instructions. The instructions work, but if they're confusing you, it's really this first pop of color you want to get those lined up first. And then you can so this will actually go together really quickly. So even though I didn't have enough fabric, I can adjust this, and it's actually going to end up being, I think, 60 wide and 72 long, which that's perfectly fine for a throw quilt. So if I had only had enough fabric. Oh, well, that happens, right? So that is what I'm working on. So do you guys have any questions about how the blocks go together? Have you looked over the pattern? Does it make sense? Or does anyone have any questions?
I actually have a question with my fabric selections. I was really kind of struggling with, I kept kind of going back and forth with it. So I found one of my focus fabric is non-directional. I thought I'm just going to keep it simple, and next make it once by the pattern, make it twice, however you want. So that was my thought. And I chose my hero fabric, which was, I don't know if you can see this, how well you can see it. So it was kind of busy.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful. Kind of a wintry botanical.
Yeah, so I thought it'd be like more Christmassy because I needed something Christmassy to sit under and not be frozen. And then I chose for my pop, I was going to do a black that went with the darker pieces. So I was like, okay, I'm happy with that. And then I chose a red to go for the next one. And then I kind of got stuck on my third one was going to be, it's a kind of similar print, but it's not quite as dense.
Okay.
But then I was like, well, that's going to be too busy, I felt, before I came, because I think that's going to end up touching. I got very confused by the whole thing. I started to be like, wait a minute. So then I was like, then I started pulling out more fabric, and I'm like, okay. Then I had this green, and I was like, it kind of reads solid. So I was like, oh, maybe I could use that one and then move the other print out.
Right.
But then,
or you could do like the red and a darker red if you wanted to go more tonal, or
yeah, I have so then I have it's like a white with kind of almost a birchy kind of look to it. It's kind of stripy looking, but not super striped. But I don't know. I kind of got myself all twisted around. And
do you have enough of that white print that you could use it for the sashing?
I have plenty of it all.
Said like a true quilter.
There's no shortage.
Because
and
maybe that would kind of have the same look as this, because I'm going to have a very light color for the sashing. It's a very light blue compared to what else is going on. Okay. And I think it'll look great, actually. So, and I'm going to give it away, so I won't have to love it if I don't.
Well, that was my thought. If I didn't really like it, I would just give it away. And if I like it, I'll back it with cuddle and enjoy the hell out of it.
Oh, so this one behind me, I don't know how well you can see this. Let's see, I can move my laptop here. So these are cows. So it's cow fabric. And then she used a solid black and then a floral because she was trying to pick up on these flowers. And then the blue is just it's a pattern, but it's very, it almost reads as a solid. And then she used gingham for the sashing. And I think it looks really awesome. And so, up close it's one thing, but I think I really think it looks even better kind of at the distance. Oh, I didn't show you let me show you the binding. So she used a villain print. Can you see that where it's got chickens and cows and everything on it? So she's got a different print, and so she really played off those colors. This is a friend of mine. Well, actually, we call ourselves the Outlaws. Her daughter is married to my son. And at the beginning of COVID, she wanted to learn how to quilt. And so, well, it was like May, and she wanted to make quilts for all her brothers and sisters for Christmas. And I was like, oh, how many brothers and sisters do you have? And she said, 8. I was like, okay. Guess what? She had them done in August. And we were long arming like crazy people here, getting all her quilts done. But so this, I think that the cow is actually some of Teresa's mom's fabric that was still left over. Her mom died last year. So she's been using up all these things and making gifts for the kids and grandkids. Now, she turned she's got hers turned a little bit different. The blocks are all exactly from my pattern, but then she turned them. And I think it looks great. So if you think that you want to turn your blocks and make them, you don't want to do upper left, you say, okay, I made my blocks, but I don't want to put it together like you told me to. That is perfectly fine. This is your quilt. You're the boss. So, but yeah, I hope that I just thought that came out really well, and it looks great, and it kind of gives you it's totally not something I would do, but I love it. And I think that the black really plays off the cows really well, but look how much that blue pops out. I mean, the blue really pops when you're looking at it. So I think it's fun. So we can use all sorts of crazy fabrics. So does anyone else have any fabrics? Have you chosen something to use yet? Or
I did choose my fabric. So
okay, what do you have?
This is my center.
Oh, cat fabric.
Yeah, it's all cat fabric. And then this is going to be, oh, it's hard to show up on this one. This is going to be the pop color.
Perfect. That is perfect. Yep.
And then I've got these 2 blues. So I'm going to do
look awesome.
And then this is my border.
Yeah, that'll be cute.
And then this is going to be, what do you call it? The zinger, it's going to be the little piece there, because it goes with, it goes with these colors. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what I'm going to do for my sashing. I didn't know if I should do it white.
Hold up your middle cats again.
These guys.
Okay, so you're going mostly with the blues.
Yeah, the blues. And I didn't want to do orange. I kind of looked at some orange, but orange and black reminds me of Halloween. So I didn't want to do orange. And then, I don't know. So what I was going to do is I was going to put the blocks together and then take it to the fabric store and see. And I was thinking maybe a white, since I do have, I'm going to have these 3 colors, the black, the blues. I thought maybe a white sashing.
You could do a white, or you could even do like a beige. It looks like, I can't tell if it's like a peach or kind of a beige, but you could kind of go in that. If you didn't want the starkness of the white, you could go in that direction.
Yeah, this is kind of like a mauve-y pinky kind of color. It's kind of hard to tell. And then this one is kind of a beige color. And there is a little bit of gray in there, but I don't know if I want a gray, might be too dark, I think.
So yeah, I think that's a great idea though. So I love that you can make the block and take it to the store. I think that's a great idea. I had picked a different fabric that I was going to use for the sashing. And then I started cutting things out, and I got to it and I was like, you know what? I don't think that's right. And so I started digging through my fabric, and then I found this, and it was like, okay, because it's probably 2 or 3 shades lighter than what I had picked, and it's a little bit more muted. The other one was a little bit more aqua, and it was just not the right tone. So sometimes, I maybe make your blocks and then take one in, and because you can lay it on you can pull out the bolt and lay it on, and then you'll see what it looks like all the way around. I think that's a fabulous idea.
So yeah, so I was, so I had thought of white, but I thought, well, white's going to be pretty white. So
Anybody else got any other ideas for her? Or any other questions? Has anyone else picked fabric? I love to see what you guys are doing.
I was
That's the fun of
excited.
quilting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully, so next week, let's try to have at least one of our blocks done. And then we'll start talking about how we put on the sashing. So the blocks really do so easily. So you put it on. So what I like to do is I'll put on the first piece and I set the stitches. So I always have the strip up. And so I set the stitches just by putting my iron on it. And then I flip it up and press it open. Okay. So all my seams on my blocks are going out. And you can, so you guys are my friends. I'm showing you the back of my quilt. So, okay, so they're just all pressed to the outside on this. That's just easier for me. I do tend to press to one side. If you want to press open, you can make that work too. Okay, I know that there's some strong opinions out there about pressing, but I'm like, whatever goes, whatever works. Sometimes I press open and sometimes I press to the dark side, but so saying that, you may end up you might be pressing into a lighter one just because of your color choices, but I think it works really well to if you're pressing out, it just kind of it's really smooth. And then next week we'll talk about the sashing. And so I just did long pieces of sashing. If you really want to do cornerstones, it would be pretty easy to add in cornerstones on this. But I just felt like it made it a little bit too busy. I want the focus to be on that square of the big print, our hero print fabric. So, but it's totally up to you. So is that helpful? Any other questions that I can answer?
So since
go ahead.
My fabric is directional, and so I follow this kind of thing that you have here, where it says directional, where you split them in 2 equal groups and then you do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So so right at the beginning, I was saying that, so I want this one is going to be directional. I'm going to make another one where I don't really care. So it's much easier if you don't care if your fabric's directional. The cows are not directional. They're going the cows are everywhere. These are wild cows out in the pasture. And I think it looks fine because, we have to remember that most quilts are getting used. And so you're looking at it from every direction anyway. So that's why most of the time I just don't care. I feel like with the menorahs, since that's a religious symbol, that it's more respectful for me to put them all facing up. So, and knowing the person I'm giving it to, it's entirely possible that she might hang it up. So that's why I'm going with that. So if you were doing something that you were going to do for a wall hanging or something. But yeah, so I would figure it out, and then I would for sure, when I did the Halloween one, I put them in piles because if you guys saw that one last week where some were owls and some were ravens, I didn't want all the owls in one row. So I figured out the placement first, and then
premiering on Great American Family.
There we go. I didn't want I wanted all the birds in the same direction. So with that one, I actually ended up with 4 piles. And then, so the pop fabrics were going, upper left, upper right, lower left, lower right, because I knew that I needed 4 of each. With this got a little bit trickier because I was like, well, I know that they're not all going to be 4. So which ones are only 2? So if you're following the if you've got the even number, it's the twin size that might throw you off a little bit. So just be careful on that one because that one's the only one that's not square.
Okay.
But yeah, and once you get the pop fabric on, it's easy because as long as you put the pops on the right place, you really can't make a mistake after that.
Okay, cool.
Sound good? Well, thanks so much for coming, you guys. I hope you're having fun I just think it's a fun pattern. And I think there's so many fun novelty fabrics out there. Kristen works at a shop that is like novelty fabric heaven. It's like, if you need something, you go there and you're going to find it. And I just like them. I find that I'm drawn to those fabrics, but then I look out in the quilt patterns and I'm like, there's nothing out here that's going to look good. And so I really wanted to design something that would make them pop and just be fun.
Mm-hmm.
So next week, bring a block. So we'll have a block show and tell. Sound good?
Sounds
Yep.
good.
All right. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great week and take
Bye,
care
Kaye.
and keep warm.
No kidding.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.